Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. Well, I went ahead and did it. Do you see what I did? Do you know what these are? These are the Trionfi della Luna decks by Patrick Valenza, and they are similar to a recreated Tarot de Marseille decks, because I got all four of them. Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Why did I do that? Well, the original deck is this one on the top. And then there is the Paradoxical Rose deck. And then there is the Paradoxical Blue deck and the Paradoxical Purple deck. And I think they went in that order. And I couldn't decide. I could not decide which ones to get. I knew I wanted to get the original, but I couldn't decide which of the colored variations of the paradoxical editions I wanted. So I thought I would sacrifice myself to the common good and get all four of them, all three sets of the paradoxical and the original, along with the two, what is this called? These are the two add-on decks, the two expansion decks for the Paradoxical Rose and the original. Now, the Paradoxical Blue and Purple already have these cards in them. So to balance it all out, I had to get these as well, didn't I? So, friends, what I decided to do is I'm going to do a side by side. What do I mean? I'm going to put all of these on the table for you to see alongside a Conver deck, a very traditional, common Nicholas Conver Tarot de Marseille deck. So you can, one, compare these cards to a traditional set, and also you can compare the colorations between the rose, the blue, and the purple. So friends, warning, fair warning, this is probably going to take a while because I'm going to be flipping a whole bunch of cards. So if you're interested, if you're curious, stay tuned and take a look at all of them. So friends, what I'm doing is I'm doing a side-by-side of all of these decks. And I'm sorry for the glare right now. I think once we get to the cards, you won't see as much glare, especially here and here. However, I thought I'd show you the boxes first. What I'm doing is putting, again, the Trionfi della Luna original, Paradoxical Rose, Paradoxical Blue, and Paradoxical Purple next to a CBD Tarot de Marseille, which is a very standard Conver edition. It's not a facsimile, it is a reproduction by Yoav Ben-Dov, but it's pretty true to the traditional coloration and the traditional line work. Again, it's not a facsimile. So, first I thought I'd show you the boxes in case you were curious. These are the boxes. These are one side of the box, and I will flip them over so you can see the other side of the box. The boxes are pretty. They're very pretty. And they have that feeling of the Deviant Moon decks. Do you know the Deviant Moon? Just in case you don't know the Deviant Moon, let me show you. Just a moment. So this is my Deviant Moon borderless edition of the standard tarot, Rider-Waite-Smith system. And just so that you can compare, this is what the backs look like, and this is what the fronts look like. Now you get a similar style to the artwork. The coloration is different, certainly. And I'll bring this back in just a moment when we actually look at the cards. Okay, so let's see. Let's see the sides of the boxes, if you're interested. It's a standard flip box. Nicely created. All of them have 333 at the bottom. You can see this one was produced in 2021. This one was produced in 2021 as well. This one was produced in no date. So again, I think this one, the Rose edition, is the earlier version. So let me pause for a moment and I will take these out of their boxes. Okay, so I unboxed them and I put them in order because there were slight variations in the orders of the decks. These two decks were in order. I kept to this order because this deck was ordered a little bit differently and the CBD Tarot was ordered entirely differently. So we're going to keep them the same as best as I could. And then I realized I forgot to show you these, the two beast packs, the extension packs for the standard edition and for the Paradoxical Rose. So what I will do now is you will see that these are wrapped in paper and I really want to keep the signature. So I'm going to carefully unpack these separately and stick them under the Rose and the standard decks. You can see here that the dates on the title cards are a little bit different. Now these don't say 2021, these say 2014. So my understanding of the order of these decks apparently is off. But you can see, here we have 2014, 2016, no date. And then the CBD Tarot, this one was published by US Games in 2017. So let me put these underneath the decks. Just a moment. Okay, I think we are ready now. You can see that I got the cards out of these packages as best as I could, maintaining the signature and the paper. Now, these were wrapped in a very heavy waxed paper, which I'm told is a traditional way of packaging and transporting Tarot de Marseille decks. The tuck box, the two-part boxes, those are all much more modern inventions. So it's nice to have something packaged a little bit traditionally when it's a traditionally themed deck. So I've got it all arranged, I think. I'm sorry I'm not able to completely eliminate the glare here. I had a choice. I could go with enough light so you get a good sense of the color difference, or I could make it very dark and the colors get a little bit off on the screen. So I decided to go with it this way. Please understand. Let's look at the cards. So you can see that the cards from Patrick Valenza are closer to a Rider-Waite Smith tarot size, right? So this is a US Games Rider-Waite Smith deck. This is the Tarot de Marseille by Patrick Valenza, Trionfi della Luna, and you can see they are the same size. Whereas the CBD Tarot de Marseille is smaller. Most of my Marseille decks are slightly smaller than my tarot decks. You can see the difference in size here. The length is the same, but it's thinner. And this is also a US Games deck. Yeah, this Tarot de Marseille is a US Games production. So even US Games puts their Marseille decks on smaller cardstock often. So here we go. Oh yes, the backs. Let's see the backing. You can't see the backing on the title card, but you can see the backings on the first card. So let me flip those over so you can see the backs of these decks. You can see the purple, you can see the blue, you can see this is the rose, but it has a green back. You can see the standard coloration or the original coloration, which has a brown back. And then, in case you're curious, the CBD Tarot has a very Tarot de Marseille backing. Yeah, this kind of style is very common for Tarot de Marseille. Okay, so these are the backs. And let me flip them back over so we can dive into the decks, card by card. Friends, please, don't expect perfect alignment in this video because I'm working with 5 decks here and they're going to slip and slide. The cardstock is very nice for all of these decks. For the CBD Tarot de Marseille, as well as for the Trionfi della Luna. Yeah, it's glossy. You can see it's glaring. Yes, it's glossy, but it's got good flexibility. It's thin, but it feels very durable. And so they're going to slip and slide a little bit. Maybe not as much as some matte decks, but they're still going to slip and slide. So here we go. Let me take off the title cards and reveal the Fool. The Fool. You can see that these are all in English. Yeah? The Fool rather than Le Mat. So what do we have? We have a very similar image, except instead of having the dog or the cat or the animal here, we got the butt. We got the butt reacting all on its very own. And again, this is very much in keeping with the art style of the Deviant Moon, right? The same kind of faces, the same kind of bodies, the same kind of clothing, but in a Tarot de Marseille style. Let me see, where is my Fool for the Deviant Moon? Okay, my Deviant Moon is shuffled, so finding the Fool is not going to be very easy. Shall I put you on pause for just a moment? I'm curious enough. Just a moment. Okay, so here is the Deviant Moon Fool. Nothing similar at all. But still, the art style is very similar with the art style in the Deviant Moon decks. Okay, so the Fool. We've got rolling hills, we got plant life. It's interesting that there's one shoe on and one shoe off, isn't there? What do you think about these color differences? Can you already see a preference for yourself between the rose, the blue, or the purple paradoxical? Now you can see the rose seems much browner in person than I expected. Yeah, the color on the camera and the color here are pretty much the same. You're seeing an image just a shade redder than what it looks like in person, but it's very, very close. It is very, very close. Okay, so here we have the Fool. Let's move on to the Magician. So we can see we have a very similar thing, except notice the cards at the bottom. There are no cards on the floor here. And we have not only a 3-legged table, but in this one we have a 3-legged person. Yeah, the Magician has 3 legs as well as the table. The knife is a little bit bloody here, which is not standard. But we got the cups, we got the dice, we got the knife, we got the wand, we got the hat. I like this mask. I really like the original. I'm glad I got these as well, but I really like the original coloration more than I liked it when I saw it on the computer. So I hope you get a clearer image of what the cards will look like here on this video, because when I saw these images on the website, I thought, yeah, it's nice, but I think I'd like the paradoxical more, but now seeing them in person, I do like the original more. Okay, so moving right along, here we have the High Priestess instead of the Papesse. So you can see this is different from a Conver deck, right? She is standing rather than sitting. Her books are beneath her feet. And she has moons, whereas the Tarot de Marseille Papes card usually does not have a moon. Now this is much more of a mix between Rider-Waite and Tarot de Marseille, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. But look at her. Looks like a nun, doesn't she? Or maybe a mystic, perhaps. To me, this is a very Roman Catholic influenced image. Okay, here we go with the Empress. Oh my goodness, look at her. Wow, look at her. Okay, again, she's not seated like you would see in a standard Tarot de Marseille. And instead of an eagle on a shield, she's got her bird, a real live bird right next to her, smoking a cigarette in true Empress form. I love this eye on her belly, yeah, and the exposed nipple showing the mothering creative energy, and the fullness of her body is beautiful. But still a very regal. I mean, she doesn't look like she's a poor mother by any means. She's got the crown, she's got the hair, she looks like she's dressed for the opera, if you ask me, except for the nipple hanging out. But in the world of the deviant moon and the Trionfi della Luna, this is possibly very acceptable for going to the opera. Who knows? Interesting. I like the blue more than I thought I would. Moving on to the Emperor. So for our Emperor, again, we have a standing figure. And rather than a shield, we've got a beast on a leash. We've got a bat on the wand instead of the typical scepter of the Emperor. But you get the same idea, right? They're looking different directions, which can be important for reading in this style of deck. So this Emperor is looking to the past, perhaps, and these Emperors are all looking to the future. With the Imperatrice, with the Empress, it's interesting. Empresses are often looking forward and a little bit right, but this Empress is looking to the left, clearly to the left, but also matching her Emperor. So they look at each other, right? This Empress and Emperor look at each other as well. So that's helpful. Reading directionally. I love this building in the background. The background landscape is going to be very interesting in the Trionfi della Luna, whereas the backgrounds in most of the Tarot de Marseille are going to be very plain. Let's move on to the Hierophant. Wow, the Hierophant. Now, instead of the Hierophant, traditionally, this is Le Pape. But we have the two supplicants or the two acolytes in front. These looking more like supplicants and these looking more like acolytes to me, but there you go. We've got a very churchy looking figure here with two individuals in front asking for something, holding instead of a cross, we've got a kind of sickle image here and a moon on the chest rather than a cross. Interesting choices. More of moon energy here rather than the cross energy and symbolism of a traditional Tarot de Marseille. You notice how the eyes, one is open and one is closed. Often there is a reading of the Hierophant or the Le Pape being the one in between these two, between conservative and liberal, between the two sides. So here we have the two sides in one face as well. And notice the water at the bottom. We don't often associate the Hierophant with a lot of water. Now this is the water of these demons or creatures' tears, But notice how this one has fire on the tail and this one does not. This one looks more female and this one might look a little bit more male, who knows? I don't know quite yet. Moving right along to the Lovers. Now, traditionally, this is l'amoureux, and we don't have a Cupid. We don't have the extra person as guide or guardian or choice. These two lovers are clearly in a lover's embrace. They look like they have made their choice. Whereas this figure here looks like he's still in the middle of making the decision. Interesting, interesting. Very human figure, very non-human figure. Although this human figure has an odd number of breasts. So maybe that's the less than human side of these cards. Of these, the female figures in these cards. Okay, moving on to the Chariot. The Chariot. Look, oh my gosh, look at that. Okay, so this Chariot is clearly more mobile than this Chariot. We don't have the canopy. Instead, we have a flag, and we have, there are no stars in this one. That's Rider-Waite-Smith deck, right? The stars up on the canopy. Here we have stars up here. A star, I should say. And also a star on the banner. And one similarity, here we have these two beasts who look like they're growing out of the chariot. We have the same feeling here. Although these look like human figures with the hair being the reins on, on these poor creatures, looking very sad. Notice the difference in expression. Often we think of the chariot, especially in this deck, as the horses going in potentially two different directions, right? Well, also in Rider-Waite-Smith. And here we have differences between these two pulling figures. We have one with the tongue out, one with the tongue in. There's a slight hair color variation here that you don't really see in the paradoxical editions. But still, the tongue sticking out does show some difference. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. And notice the moons here. There are a lot of moons in the Deviant Moon, Trionfi della Luna. Here are some more moons here. Okay, moving on to Justice. Justice and La Justice. So, we've got the scales. We got the sword. We don't have the back banner here, which is interesting. Rather than that, we have what looks like perhaps court buildings or official-looking buildings in the background. She is not seated, and she is not potentially manipulating the scales with her knee, as some people see in this deck. She is looking carefully at the scales, whereas she is not, right? And this Justice figure seems very guarded, protected, wearing armor, which is not common in Tarot de Marseille. Look at the clothes. Look at the design of the clothes on all of these figures. They're gorgeous, they're lush, they're rich, they're also meaningful, I think. I love the crown of the Justice figure here. Interesting, so interesting. And then the two different colored faces. Here we go with the Hermit. With the Hermit. And l'Ermite. L'Ermite. So, interesting here. Traditionally, we have a lantern, we have a rod, a staff, right? They're all facing the same direction. Remember, the Empress and the Emperor were flipped in direction, but these are all facing the same direction. We see feet here, but we don't see feet here. And instead of a lantern, we've got glowing fingers, radioactive fingers perhaps. And perhaps that radioactive finger explains the lumpy head. I don't know, just my thought of the moment. And here we have mountains in the background, which is a little bit RWS, right? Usually there's no background mountain here. So there's a lot of RWS influence in this deck. Cards are beautiful. Look at the expression on his face. The expressions on his face is here. Moons, stars in this deck as well. You can see the ribs here. So this hermit has been perhaps living in austerity. Interesting. And here we go with the Wheel of Fortune. So, very standard. Yeah, very standard Marseille. But notice this. Notice this. Here we have the figure on top with just the sword. And that's it. But in the Trionfi della Luna, we have all of the elements here, right? We've got the discs, we've got the swords, we got the wands, we got the cups, which is an interesting addition to this. Some wheels of fortune show the seasons in the wheel. So one would be perhaps, and sometimes in vegetation, for example, spring flowers, summer flowers, fall leaves, and maybe winter ivy, perhaps. Yeah. Notice now this is not common. We have pyramids and a little oasis, perhaps here. We've got some liquid seeming to flow out. The liquid in the cup is not this color liquid. And notice how the colored liquid changes in the different versions. Here we have red, here we have very pink, blue, and somewhat periwinkle, perhaps. So attention to the shift in coloration between the rose, the blue, and the purple decks is very helpful. You see how the colors change. And so it's not just the background, or there's very great attention to detail in each version of the deck, which makes each of them quite unique and beautiful individual works of art. Okay, moving on to strength. And look at this. Oh, look at her. Oh, look at her. Okay, so rather than having a figure, the human and the lion, we've got a lion human here. And this strength card is actually similar to other, perhaps more Italian decks. I wonder if I should have compared this to an Italian deck, where strength card is, rather than the relationship between a human figure and an animal, it's actual physical strength. But then we also have the mix of human and lion here. We have the woman and lion merged together in one. And the moon, is this moon sweating? Is this moon having a hard time? Love the backgrounds. The Grecian or Roman, I wonder if this is Grecian or Roman. What do you think? Is this a Grecian temple or a Roman temple in the background? And notice the foot. There's a human foot and not a lion foot. We can't say it's a lion foot, but it is a beast's foot. Paw. Lovely, lovely hair. Look at the change in color between the flowers and the hair here. That detail, that attention to detail is magnificent in these decks. Here we have the Hanged Man, a very different Hanged Man from usual. Yeah, we don't often see a snake wrapping around the Hanged Man in the Hanged Man cards. But we do have the two tree-like structures here with perhaps blood. Now this is interesting. I just noticed this. This tree looks very common, very similar to this kind of a tree, right? We have limbs that have been sliced off, and here dripping blood. But on the left-hand side, we have growing limbs here. We have buds sprouting. We have leaves sprouting. So that balance, and also color variation, right? We have red and green, pink and, I don't know, gray, blue and kind of pinkish gray, purple and a different shade of pinkish gray. Interesting. And this snake Well, this snake does not look very gentle, does it? But isn't it interesting that this hanged person, this hanged man, looks like they're in a cocoon, which is that suspension, that time in between, before becoming the next evolution of self. So I get a kind of cocooned butterfly feel from this one, which of course you wouldn't get from the Tarot de Marseille, hanged man. Love the legs on this guy. And notice there are no legs visible here. The cocoon is wrapped around, just as the snake is wrapped around the top bar. Okay, okay, notice this. There are the two mounds here, which echo these two mounds here, and the cavity, the space in between. Okay, moving right along. I told you this is going to take a while. Here we go with the card 13, and I'm very glad that Patrick Valenza did not name this card, which is wonderful. But notice, these are very interesting, very interesting. Instead of the scythe cutting off the heads on the ground, here we have the heads on the ground, but the sword is cutting off the skeleton figure's head, or not cutting off, but piercing the skeleton figure's head. And here we have a fully living creature in the belly of what is in other decks called the devil. So this is a pregnant devil, which reminds me a lot of the devil card from Deviant Moon, which is also a pregnant devil. This card 13 reminds me of the devil card, is what I'm really trying to say. Let me see if I can find it, because I just had this card pulled for me today in a reading by a new friend, a new and very kindred spirit friend of mine. Let me see, where is that death card? And should I pause? Should I pause? I'm not going to pause. Here she is. Okay, so here is the death card in the Deviant Moon. Now, a very pregnant death card, death, creature. But this one this creature is not ready to give birth quite yet, right? This creature looks like they have either given birth or are in the process of giving birth. I don't know, it could be a kind of kangaroo kind of situation where the little immature post-fetus creature crawls out and goes into a pouch to develop. Maybe that's what's going on here. Or maybe this is what the birthing process for this creature looks like. Who knows? But yeah, here we go. We got a birthing figure, which we don't get in this card. And look at the birds in the background. Lovely. And this withered tree, and the bony knees with muscle attached. Lovely. I'm glad I got this one. I'm glad I got all of them, but I'm glad I got this one. I was half thinking not to get it, actually. So I'm very glad I got this. Notice one shoe on, one shoe off. No shoes. No shoes, but this foot is planted in the ground. Okay, I'm moving on, sorry. And here we go with temperance. Okay, so we have lovely differences and lovely similarities. We have the temperance figure here, looking to the left a little bit, but kind of face on here, but body is pointed to the left. Notice, look at the feet here. The bottom body is kind of pointed to the left, whereas this bottom body seems to be pointed perhaps to the right. Interesting, very interesting. But and look at the difference in the positions of the vessels, yeah? Up on the left, down on the left. And these cups are more akin to the rest of the cup suit, whereas these vessels are nothing like the cup suit in this deck. Instead of a flower, we've got double moons here. Yeah, Patrick Valenza loves his moons. Here are moons here in the background and stars and an elephant. Okay, interesting addition. We have the water here in the background instead of blue-colored hilly structures. We actually have a river in the background, but we don't have that Tarot de Rider-Waite-Smith style of 1 foot in the water, 1 foot out, do we? Which is not necessary. I mean, it doesn't have to be that way, and it probably should not be that way in this deck. Interesting, we only have one wing in here, right? One wing on the angel's form. And we have one breast exposed and one breast covered. So we have that balancing, mingling of two different aspects. We have the two different aspects showing. 1 foot exposed, 1 foot not. Very interesting. I wonder what this is. It's not the hair, I don't think. Is it the tie to the garment, perhaps? I don't know. Okay, here we go with the devil. Here we go with the devil. Oh, look at that devil. Now, this is a devil from a very different card system. Now, there are different kinds of devils. And there are devils with the face in the belly, like this. And there are devils without the face in the belly, like this. There are devils with faces in the knees, like this. Whereas this deck has none. So there's a name for this kind of deck, and maybe I'll find it and add a title to it. But this kind of devil has a specific name to it. It's a something version. And I might be able to find it. It might take too much time. Anyway, so traditional Tarot de Marseille has this kind of devil in it. Just remember that if you don't know. Interesting that the devil is facing to the left instead of facing out towards us. But carrying a wand and 3 snakes, which is interesting, in addition to the snake tail. And no figures in front. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. And here, oh, I picked up too many cards. Somewhere. Okay, where did my tower card for this deck go? Just a moment. Let me find the tower. I'll be right back. The tower card was just below the star card. Sometimes that happens in a deck. And here we go with the tower and Les Maisons Dieu. Now, personally, I prefer Les Maisons Dieu, the name, the House of God, rather than the tower from the Rider-Waite-Smith system, personally, because I read them differently. I read the tower differently from the House of God, or La Maison Dieu. And you'll see that whereas many Marseille decks, you'll have one figure that clearly looks like they're falling and one figure that may look like they're climbing out of a bottom door. Here we don't have that. Both figures are clearly falling. And one is on fire, for goodness sakes. That's new. We have the lightning coming from, the fire coming from above. We have these kinds of arrows coming down, similar to a lightning figure, which, now, there is an additional card to these decks. There's an additional tower card at the bottom, which is the lightning card. Some Tarot de Marseille decks have, instead of La Maison Dieu, have a tree hit by lightning. And there is a card like that down at the bottom somewhere. So when we get to that, I'll point it out. But look at this door. I love that you can see this door here at the bottom and the fire on the inside of the tower as well. Okay, moving on to the star. And here we have a very traditional star card in a different system of Tarot de Marseille. Now, in the Convert deck, it's more similar to a Rider-Waite-Smith star card. But in other decks, often there is a seated astrologer. For example, I believe the Tarot de Paris has this kind of star card in it as well. And here we have star charts. We've got the astrologer looking at a star in the sky. We've got moons on his chair, which I love. This figure looks the most human to me of all the figures so far. Now, we don't, except for I just noticed it. Did you just notice, or have you already noticed the less than human aspect to this astrologer? How many arms does he have? He's got 3 arms. I just noticed that. Okay, so still. Okay, look at that. Okay, so we've got a different face here sticking underneath the nose. We've got one face very white with a white beard, and then a darker face sticking out from underneath the nose. So we do have that deviant moon quality to this deck as well, even in this card, even though it's a bit more subtle perhaps. I love the buildings in the background. Okay, moving on to the moon, the moon, the moon, la lune. So instead of 2 creatures baying at the moon with a crustacean coming out from a pool in front, we have a lobster or crab clawed figure with an octopus kind of tail and wings and horns. Beautiful. Look at the face in this moon. A very serene looking face in this moon here. This moon looks a little bit more deviant to me. We still have the energy, the fire coming down from the moon. We have the 2 towers. Although traditionally or often these 2 towers will be different, whereas these towers look look exactly the same to me. I haven't noticed a difference yet. Okay, there is one slight difference, and I don't know if you noticed that. Here we have some dot work here on the outer sides of the tower, here on the right and here on the left. Here on the right, here on the left. Now the same in all of these cards. So there is a slight difference. If you look for it, it's there. Not as much of a difference as in this one. Wow, look at that. And notice how different the colors of the fire or the energy coming from the moon are. The different colors of the faces in the moon. All beautiful, all beautiful. Okay, here we go with the sun. Here comes the sun, da 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 da. And wow, okay, now this is wonderful. This is beautiful. This is amazing. Here we have a traditional looking sun, looking kind of, I'm sorry, this sun looks like he's been doing or she has been doing a little bit of weed. It looks a little bit stoned to me. This sun looks a little bit stern, which is fine. Actually, more than fine, it's wonderful. Notice how there is that connection between the 2 figures in front of the walls here. Yeah, we have one hand. The gesture is very similar. The hand on the chest, but instead of the hand on the chest, we have the hand piercing the belly. And instead of the hand on the shoulder, we have the hand in a choke lock on the throat here. Very, very interesting. Very, very deviant. Notice the moon, the sickle-shaped tool here, which we don't have here. The figures are both similarly clothed. This figure has wings, which this one does not, which is an interesting addition. And also notice the horns on this one. Kind of an angel-devil feel to these decks, whereas this one does not. Although, a lot of people see this, and let me point it out with my little pointer here. A lot of people see this as a kind of tail. Whereas to me, it just looks like shading on the buttocks, looking more like fulsome buttocks to me, but some people see this as a tail, reminiscent of the creatures in the Devil card. Here we go, the pixies in the Devil card with their tails. Yeah, some people see this tail as being similar to this tail, which is fine, it's possible. I don't particularly see it that way. However, if you do see it that way, you could see how this could perhaps translate to this kind of devilish image. Yeah? And this being more, I mean, if you're going to compare, an angel image. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay. Very, very stern, grumpy looking moons. Or suns, I'm sorry, suns. Oh, look at that judgment. Look at that judgment. Okay, very similar. However, there are also some differences, right? Instead of the central figure facing back, we have the central figure facing forward. Instead of these two figures facing this figure, these two figures seem to be facing each other. We do have the angelic figure above with wings. Interesting that there are angel and bat wings on this figure. Yeah, angel and demon with two different kinds of horns, right? We have the angel side holding a very watery horn and the devil looking sign with a very fiery looking horn. We also have differences in the rays coming out from behind the clouds here. These look more like lightning, whereas these look more like these, right? Interesting detail. I love the detail on these decks. In these decks. Does this figure look scared to you? Biting their nails? These figures look kind of scared. No, I don't want to rise from my coffin. I was very happy down there. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting from these. Whereas these look very, I'm ready to go to heaven. Thank you for waking us up and calling us to heaven. He's like, no, don't make us go. I'm scared. Okay, I'm going a little too far. Here we go with the world. Oh, look at that world. Look at that world. So you see that there's body diversity in this text, right? There are skinny and there are not skinny people. We can't really say that these are human-colored figures, right? They're blue, they're gray, they're white. There are many, many different colors, even in the traditional deck. Interesting things to point out here. Instead of the wreath, here we have a banner, you would say, coming up from the world, which we don't actually have a world in the traditional card, right? Instead, we usually have the 4 archangels, the 4 cardinal signs, the 4 fixed zodiac signs, or the 4 elements. Here we have the 4 winds, I think. Yeah, probably north, south, east winds. You'll notice, look at her headdress. Her headdress is gorgeous. And instead of this cloth, we have like a laurel wreath here. So perhaps we could say that this laurel wreath has become this for her. So this world looks, I don't know, looks freer, perhaps, than this world. Some people see that this world figure is encased in this wreath, whereas she is clearly dancing at the top of the world. We have, of course, the tradition, the deviant moon kind of face here. Look at her hair. Look at her adornment on her hair and the fire of her torch. Lovely. Absolutely lovely. And so, I put the Fool at the beginning because that's the way these cards were arranged. Usually after this card would come Lemat, the 0 card. But we already looked at that. Okay, so here we go into the pips. And because these decks started with swords, I decided to keep this order. The swords. Okay, so, oh, look at that. We've got the crown, we got the things, although instead of, we do get, oh, look at that. Okay, so what am I looking at? Notice that these are reversed, right? Here we have the cut ends here at the bottom and the growing plant above. Here we have the cut ends above bleeding, one of them bleeding, and the growing ends below, which is interesting. This finger has been pricked by their sword. and perhaps even sliced off this part of the plant. Very interesting. Have you decided, is there a coloration of the paradoxical side that you prefer? Do you prefer the purple, the blue, or the rose? Or are you going to be mad like me and get all four? If you do, let me know. Tell me below. Are you going to get all four? They're a little bit pricey, but they're gorgeous. They are gorgeous, aren't they? Here we have the Two of Swords. Very traditional decoration, although the swords are a little bit different. Here we have handles at the bottoms and points at the tops rather than the handle-looking tops and bottoms. But we have the floral center. We have the four decorative elements here on the outside. Interesting, beautiful extra decorations here. Okay, moving on to the Three of Swords. Here we go with the threes. Very, very similar, very similar. Instead of plant life, here we have banners, but you know, you get it. Notice the blood. We don't have... Now, okay, do you see this red as blood? Or is it the red of passion? This clearly looks like blood in the Trionfi della Luna. Okay, finally it got through this thick skull. Trionfi della Luna. I'm sorry, I'm shaking things. Trionfi della Luna. The moon, the moon, the moon. Why didn't I get that until now? Okay, here we go. The triumph of the moon. So that's why there are moons in all of these cards. Duh. So maybe you should go check out a more intelligent person's channel. Here we go with the Four of Wands. Oh, look at that. Okay, we have the flower in the center. Notice this. Now, I heard some people say that in decks like this, you can't really tell which is reversed. For example, you could tell which is reversed here because the flower is pointed up or pointed down. And of course, you can get that flower pointed up and down here. But in some, I don't know. Okay, I don't know what I'm talking about. But notice these blades. Now you'll notice that here we have the handle and the blade, the handle and the blade. And when this is reversed, we have the blade and the handle, the blade and the handle. Which is going to be more important, I think, when we get to like 9 or 8 and 10, where the decorative elements are much less. Okay, here we go to the 5. Look at that, a bloody 5. So you can see that the Five of Swords is bloody in this deck as well. Yeah? Perhaps reminiscent of this red. And we have the 4 moons instead of the 4 flowers. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Here we have the 6. Oh, look at that eye. Look at that eye. Ay, 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 ay. Instead of a flower, we have a blooming eye. Blooming, why? Because of the plant life. But yeah, look at that. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay. Okay, so moving on to the 6s. I'm sorry, not this. This is the 6. I've lost track of my numbers. Here. Okay, yes, the 7s. I'm sorry, I'm getting tired too. If you want, pause and come back later. Here we have the 7s. And look at the addition of the bat wings here, or the demon wings, to the swords. No blood here, even though this sword is red. No blood dripping on the 7s, is there? Okay, and here we go with, oh, look at that. Remember when I just said there was no blood? Here we got some bloody 8s. Instead of this flower in the center, we've got drips of blood. How many drips? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 drops of blood on the 8 card. Wouldn't it have been interesting if there had been 8 drops of blood here? Or maybe it's more interesting that there are not. Maybe this 7 being here can tell us something. Notice how these are woven at the top. Yeah, the weaving pattern here seems to be getting more pronounced the higher we go up in the suit. And here we go with the 9. Okay, look at that. Look at that 9. And then the 9 here. So, very similar. We've got the 9 sword dripping blood here in all of these cards. Lovely. Lovely. Okay, and finally the 10. Oh, whoa, look at that. Whoa. So there's a lot of blood in the sword suit in the Trionfi della Luna, isn't there? We've got the woven pattern. We've got the swords inserted in, just like we do in the Conver deck. Lovely. And here we go into the court. Page of Swords. Page of Swords. So we've got the pages looking in the same direction, kind of down and to the left. Here we have a cliff, which is not in many of the traditional decks that I know. However, nor is a moon in the traditional deck, or nor are there clouds in the traditional decks, right? We don't have a scabbard here, which we do here, but we do have the sword generally, although, okay, this sword is kind of leaning up against the shoulder, not really ready to be used, but this sword is there, he's ready. This page, he or she is ready to use that sword because they're bound up by this creature. Interesting. Okay, moving on to the Knight of Swords. Look at that. Oh, wow. Trotting on a demon, facing in a different direction. Okay, so if that's important to you, something to keep in mind. These Knights of Swords are facing to the future, and this knight is looking towards the past. And we don't have the face decorations on the shoulders here. Instead, we have a demon helmet. And we have a demon face on the shield, which we don't have here. Fabulous. Look at the decoration on this horse creature. Yeah? Not exactly a horse. Look at the paws of this are not the paws of a normal horse, but still. Beautiful, beautiful. And the shooting star and the bleeding moon or sun. I don't know, is that a sun or is it a moon? Something to ponder. So here we have, look at that queen. Oh, she looks tired, doesn't she? So here we have the queen. Not seated as in a standard deck. Look at the fire behind her. And the blood dripping from her sword on this poor little bird flying behind. Birdfish flying behind her. We have moons on her breasts. And we have wilted plants in front. So, interesting. We've got fire behind her and wilting flowers in front. Does that mean anything to you? Does that say anything to you? Does the fact that you can see the path that her sword is dragging on the ground, does that mean anything to you? Interesting. And here we have the King of Swords. Here we have the King of Swords. Wow. And okay, look at that. We have the face on the shoulders here, which is wonderful. We also have the sword lifted, looking in the same direction, although this king is kind of body-faced to the past, face-faced to the future with open vision. Now, does this sword blocking the vision mean anything to you? Does this volcano in the past mean anything to you? Interesting. Okay, and we have a bloody crescent moon behind. And look at these decorations on the top of the swords. Curious, very curious. Okay, here we go to the aces. The Ace of Wands. Oh, look at that. No bleeding pinky here. The wand, very similar. Facing the same direction, we've got clouds, the hands coming up from a cloud. We have plant life, which is added. Look at the horn on the wand. But we have the severed limbs here as well. We have the severed top, a very rough and rude looking wand. And here we have the two Very traditional Tarot de Marseille patterns. Similar decorations. I mean, they're not the same by any means, but similar in that we got stuff at the top, we got stuff pointing out to the sides. Here we have the threes. Here we have the Three of Wands. Now you'll notice that the wands here are formed differently, right? Let's take a look at the twos again. So we have this kind of flower top and bottom to the wands, which is not standard. And we don't have to be standard, do we? However, we do have very similar decorative elements, right? We have the flowering decorative elements bursting from the sides here. And here we have with the four. The fours are woven. Now we begin the weaving pattern of the fours, which we do in a traditional deck. Now here we have that red center. We don't have a differently colored center here, but it's not necessary, is it? Do you see any moons in the wand deck, in the wand suit? I don't see any moons here yet. We have stars, but no moons. So it looks like the moons may have lost to the wands. We'll see how it progresses. Oh, look at that. Okay, so the Five of Wands. Do you see this eye peeking out from behind the center? Very interesting. Very interesting. Now, is this a moon? Maybe, maybe not. Here we have the Six of Wands. Okay, so if you notice, we've got a similar, yet smaller pattern of decoration, right? Top, bottom, side, side. These wands are sprouting life, whereas these are sprouting here and here, but not from the actual wand, because these are more man-made, human-made wands. Oh, look at that. These wands are just lush. They're bursting with life. And yet we can see echoes of this kind of decoration here. And here we go with the 10, no, not 8, sorry. What do we have? The 8 of Wands, the 8 of Wands, the 8 of Wands. So there wasn't exactly much room for this decoration here. So instead of that, the creator put decoration here at the sides. I guess. That's what I'm thinking. And we have moons here. Okay, we got moons peeking out from the center. Here we have the 9. The 9. And you'll notice that the back wand you don't see coming through, right? Here we have the 9 of Wands. This back wand seems to be visible here and here. Okay, similar, I don't know. Anyways, okay, no, I'm lying. I lied. Here we have the back wand being visible, whereas this back wand, I believe, is not visible. Okay, moving on. Moving right along to the 10s. Here we go with the 10 of Wands. Okay, here we definitely have moons here. I see moons. Layout is the same. These wands in the back are visible through the wands in the front, whereas these are not. Moving right along to the Page of Wands. To the Page of Wands. And Valet de Bâton. Very different, right? This is a separate wand. It looks like a sliced tree resting on the ground. Whereas these look like they're growing out of the ground, right? Well, look like they are growing out of the ground. But our page is holding on and investigating it. Similar to a similar mood. Not quite able to lift this one, and not quite able to lift this one as well. Facing in the same direction. And here we go with the Knight of Wands. Wow. Wow, look at that creature. Very similar. He's not facing to the future, but the bodies are all pointed in the same directions. The the ridden beast's face is pointing in a similar direction as the horse's face. Look at that. And instead of the hat, we have a helmet here. Look at that fiery tail to the beast here. Fascinating. We have, look at the, okay, we have similar plant life here in these cards, with the addition of fire in the background. A lot of fire in the wand soup, which is natural. Oh, natural. Look at those faces in behind her, like a cloud of heads. Interesting. She's gorgeous. She is absolutely gorgeous. And she's holding her baton, facing in a different direction. She's standing where she's sitting. We have a very vibrant looking background here, trees growing in a mountain. And these faces in the clouds are fascinating. Very fascinating. She's holding her wand with that image there. Let me move back to the, okay. So, moving back to the Knight of Wands, just briefly. You'll notice that the Knight does not have that top. This is a very club-looking wand, whereas the Queen's wand looks a little bit like the Page's wand, though extracted from the ground. Yeah, we have this at the top. Interesting. Moving on to the King. Okay, the King also has that flowering wand. It's just the Knight that has that clubby-looking wand. Very elegant. Whereas now, oftentimes people see this as the King's wand, his scepter, perhaps sticking at his own foot, sticking him in the foot. You don't have that here. But we have this person rising up from the waves, which is interesting. A very 18th century, late 19th century perhaps, 19th century I should say, late 19th century looking king here. Yeah. Look at his crown of horns, very interesting. And the castle behind. This figure is fascinating. Who is that? Who is that? Okay, here we go into the cups. Very similar. We've got the city of Jerusalem, the heavenly Jerusalem idea much stronger in this deck than in this. Yeah? You actually see things like doors and windows and where the water is coming from, rather than looking like it's leaking out from underneath in this deck. We've got an angel on the cup, which is beautiful. Stars and the moon in the sky. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. These faces don't look like they're very happy about spouting water all the time, though, do they? Look at the banners at the top of each of the spires. Oh, these outer spires. And do you notice that this flower is very similar to the flower on the kings or the wands? Something to keep in mind. Here we go to the two. Now, oftentimes in the two of wands, the cups, I mean, there will be, yes, there will be some indication of the creator, or, the creator's initials here. We don't get that. Oh, I'm sorry, I lied. I just saw them. Patrick Valenza, right there. Patrick Valenza, we've got it. We got the two fishy-like things coming up from the central spire. Very, very similar. And you notice that the shape of the cups is very similar to a Conver deck cup. Not all Marseille decks have this kind of cup in them. Here we have the three. Look at that three. Oh, look at the eye on the three. Look at that. Okay, beautiful. Look, notice the liquid inside of these cups being blue. Now, when we had the two of cups, the two of cups was also a blue interior rather than the red. Now, does this mean blood to you? Does this look like an empty cup to you? Does it look like wine to you? This does not look like wine. This looks like water to me. Okay, Four of Cups, very traditional layout. Very traditional layout. Very conver-like layout, except there's this additional mask here at the center. Notice how they're, okay, this is interesting. 4 cups, all the same. 2 cups and 2 cups are very different in these decks, right? 2 of them look full, 2 of them either look empty or like they're full of black liquid. Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, here we go with the 5 of Cups. Again, very traditional layout. The central cup being surrounded or being guarded or contained by the floral decorations. Lovely. Do you see a moon in here? Oh yeah, there we go. Here are some moons. We got moons. I have moonage. Here we have the 6 of Cups, traditional shape. And again, notice here we have full, empty, empty, full, full, empty. Or just if you want to think light center, dark center, light center. Interesting. I love the sun here. Okay, here we go with the 7 of Cups. Woohoo! Here we go with the 7. Look at that. Lovely. And again, we continue with that light, dark variation in these cups. Here we are with the 8 of Cups. The cups are very, very traditional, very conver style cups and design and layout. And here we go with the 9. Oh, look at that. Notice how the plants are growing out of these 2 cups. I mean, it could be a variation of this where the plant looks like it's growing out of the back of the cup, perhaps taking that to the next level of it growing out of the center of the cup. But that's an interesting shift to have the plant actually growing out of the cups, out of the liquid in the cups. And here we only have 2 dark cups, whereas all of these are full. Oh, now this is wonderful. This is absolutely wonderful. Why is it wonderful? Because some people who look at this deck, you notice that this looks like it could be a pentacle. Some people see this as the 10 of Cups moving into the suit of pentacles or discs. And some people, otherwise, read this card as this cup being ready to fill the smaller cups below. And that is carried to this next level where this cup actually is filling the cups below, which I love. I love that. Oh, I love that idea of really making it very clear what my interpretation of the 10 of Cups is. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, here we go with the Page of Cups. Standing in water. Yeah, normally not standing in water, right? We have the page on drinking water. Interesting. Now, some people see this as the cup's cap or the page's cap. Now, this page is wearing their cap, not holding anything, rather holding a full to bursting belly instead. Interesting. This page has had a little bit too much wine water, perhaps, or water. Lovely, lovely. Do you love the backgrounds on the Trionfi della Luna deck as much as I do? I love the detail that has been added to the backs. Okay, so we have a sea vessel here instead of a horse for the Knight of Cups, which makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Being in water, connected to water, riding the water rather than a horse. Now we have additional protection here, which the Chevalier de Coupe usually does not have any armor. This figure does have armor. But then again, this horse does not have breasts, does it? Lovely. Lovely. Oh, look at that queen. Oh, look at that. Okay, so oftentimes the queen is kind of protective of her emotions, shrouded from the top, the lid on her cup, holding a sword. This queen is definitely not protecting. Well, okay, she is holding her cup in a protective manner, but her cup is open and she is being very receptive to additional liquid from the sun in this case. And she is standing in water. Her gown becomes water in a way. Yeah, you notice what looks like drops of liquid becoming the water perhaps at the bottom. Somewhat similar to some versions of the Rider-Waite-Smith High Priestess card where her gown becomes water in some decks. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay, here we go with the King of Cups, sitting again in water in the Trionfi della Luna, holding his cup high in the air, little pinky sticking out. I wonder if Patrick Valenza is a pinky sticker-outer when he drinks. Just something that crossed my mind at the moment. But here we go with the king facing this direction, facing off to the future. Resting on a pillar. He is seated. Not all the other kings were seated, right? This king looks like he's, if not seated, at least leaning, right? Lovely. And here we go with the discs. Oh, look at that disc. Look at that disc. I love the figure on this disc. A very standard disc. I'm curious to see if this pattern, this decoration is going to continue through the rest of the discs, because this disc continues through the rest of the suit. Let's see what happens with the two. Okay, so it's different. It is different. Can't deny that this face and this face are different and differently adorned. We do have the standard banner with the place of printing. Now here we have Conver, 1760, Ben-Dov, 2010. 2010 is when this deck was produced. Originally a Conver deck, redone by Ben-Dov. Here we have Deviant Moon Incorporated, New York, 2016. Now these are all saying 2016, which is interesting. Perhaps because that's when the original design was created. Okay, so yes, we have a very similar decoration, very similar. And here we have the three of discs. Okay, so each set of discs has a different figure in the center for the Trionfi della Luna, which is interesting. I love that. Moving on to the four of discs, and we have the shield in the center with two moons. Instead of three fleurs de lis, we have two moons in the center. Here we have the five of discs, of coins. And you'll notice there are no numbers on these decks where there are numbers on these. Yeah, we have the five. Many traditional decks don't have numbers on the coins deck. Here we have the six of coins in the what I see as a wheel pattern. Do you see this being as a wheel? It looks to me like a wheel of the material moving around, shifting around from place to place, from hand to hand. A cycle of movement of material. Notice the eye in the center? Okay, here we have the seven of pentacles, four of discs, of coins, four below, three above. Just as you would have in a Conver deck. Four below, three above. The material and producing a spiritual, more active stability and activity. Interesting. And here we have the eight of discs. The eight of discs. The eight of discs. Very similar. And look at that. We've moved into a kind of more of a demon-looking creature, right? We got horns, we got moons. Let's see if it gets more nope, we don't get more demonic. Okay, so that's not a thing. Look at that for the 9. Now we have the center. Same layout, very similar decorative patterns. And here we have the 10s. Wow, look at that. Now, do you notice that some of these figures were male and some of them were female? I'd have to go back and look. If the evens were male and the odds were female. I'm sorry. Let's see. Here we go. We have female odd card, male looking even card. How about female odd, male even? I don't know. Let's see. Does this figure look female or male to you? I mean, you could perhaps read that as a thing, that the female figures are on the odd deck cards and the male figures are on the even cards. Interesting idea. Okay, here we have the page of coins. The page of coins. Oh, I'm sorry. What did I do? Okay, I'm sorry. I messed up. Here we go with the 10. Okay, so here we go with the valet. Even, odd. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm having a little bit of a brain tweak, but you get what's going on, right? So here we go with the page of coins. Look at that. So we got 1 in the air. We don't have the 1 on the ground in the Trionfi della Luna, but that's fine. Oh, look at the back. The detail of the environment here is beautiful, isn't it? And he's actually chasing. He's got his coin in his hand, but he's chasing his coin. Notice the face in the belly. And here we go with the Knight of Coins. Here we go with the Knight of Coins. Oh, a very sleepy looking Knight of Coins. Now, a lot of people, myself included, look at the Knight or Chevalier des Deniers as the slow moving knight, the step by step, working hard, diligent knight. And this knight looks like he's had a hard day. His little beast is resting here, taking a nap or going to sleep for the night. This coin is definitely in the air. Okay, and we move on to the Queen of Coins. Look at her. Look at her. So, the Queen of Coins, Rien Denier, is often seen as the mothering queen. Yeah, the one eat, providing food, providing physical comfort. And so here we have a table laid out with food and plates and hungry little demons at her feet. Now, did she bite off of that, or is she ready to offer it to the ones below? Notice the queen in the disc here. Yeah, the queen in the cup. Oh, there was a knight in this cup. Let me go back to the original. Okay, so we've got a kind of page-looking figure in the page's coin, right? We've got a kind of knight-looking figure in the knight's coin. We've got a queen-looking figure in the queen's coin. And the curtain, the very interior scene. Okay, and here we go with the King of Coins. King of Coins, holding a little sad doll, huh? Okay, so, not seated. This king is definitely striding to the past, whereas this king is looking to the future, has a clear view of the future. This one is walking off, kingly figure on the king's coin, holding a very, very sad-looking doll, if you ask me. But beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so, here we are done with the Conver deck, and we're going to move into the extra cards for these decks. What are the extra cards? I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to give you much information about these, so I'm just going to go through them quickly-ish. And let me pull these to the side so you can see them just a little bit better. Okay, these are going to be landscape. I'll be right back. Okay, so for the landscape portion of this this presentation, which has gotten extremely long, I wonder if this is going to be 2 hours. So here we go. I can't tell you exactly what these are, but so you can compare and get an idea of what these decks look like. I will just flip through these. There's not a little white book for these decks, so I need to do some more research on what these are. But here we go. Here's number 3. Love the tails. Love the tails. Here's number 4. Again, now this is the Paradoxical Rose. This is the Paradoxical Blue. This is the Paradoxical Purple. Number 5. Interesting. The devil praying with his devil praying with the angels, perhaps, maybe. Number 6. Puppet Master. Number 7. Look at her. This kind of gives me strength card vibes. Sorry, there's a plane going overhead. But then again, this also gives me kind of strength vibes too. Now we got the lion and the angel in relationship with a lemniscate. Okay, so let me see just a moment. So this is 9. This is okay. I've got an idea. I've got an idea of what we may be looking at in landscape. Let's see. Let me see. Just a moment. Hierophant. Okay, let me just go through these very, very quickly, briefly. Very, very briefly. So 1 could be perhaps the Fool, or maybe the Magician, maybe. 2, High Priestess. 3, Empress. Now this is I'm just seeing possibility here. I'm not saying that this is right. 4, Emperor. Maybe. 5, Hierophant. 6 would be Lovers. Okay, maybe. You see, these 2 could be Lovers and the matchmaking angel or person between, perhaps. Let's see, 7 would be the Chariot. I don't know. However, in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, 8 would be Strength, right? However, okay, 9 would be the Hermit, which not this card, which looks to me like kind of looks like Justice, maybe. I don't know. So maybe I'm talking out of my you-know-what. So, and then 10. Now, let me read these to you, which is because this is interesting. All of them say the same thing. Love, happiness, peace, hope, and flew home at last. The bluebirds flew home at last. Interesting. Okay, does that mean anything to you? I don't know. I need to learn. I need to learn. Okay, so we're moving out of landscape back into standard portrait size direction. So let me stop this for a moment. Okay, now remember when I said that there was an extra card for the tower called the Lightning? Here we have that Lightning card for the Rose, Paradoxical Rose, and for the standard, the first edition of, the first creation of the Trionfi della Luna. You can see the energy coming from below, the tree caught on fire, the human surprised, these flames shooting out, bursting off from the tree. Now we don't have them for these 2 decks, but we do have them for the Paradoxical Rose and the standard coloration. So you could pull these out. Pull out the tower and insert this instead if you want, which I might actually do. Okay, because I prefer Maison Dieu. And instead of Maison Dieu, having that is fine. So here we have the Beast Pack, or the extra cards, the extension cards. Here's number 1, looking rather foolish. But it's not the Fool. And I don't know enough about these decks to give you information about them. So I will just flip through and show you them. Number 3, elephant head with a horn on a very different looking beast. Love it. Number 4, these beasts are beautiful. So this is the Beast Pack, right? So I need to find out what these beasts mean. Here's number 5. Notice how the V is upside down on the bottom. Eating a fish. And here we have number 6. I'm very sorry. Number 6. Oh, very sad looking beast in the forest. Not really forest, but still out in the wild. Number 7. Oh, look at that beast. Now that beast is actually on the, no, I've seen that beast elsewhere. I can't think where I've seen it before. Maybe is it here? No? Okay, I don't know. I've seen this beast elsewhere and I'm not sure where. Okay, moving on to number 8. A sea dragon. I love sea dragons. I love dragons. With very odd breasts. Okay, we have number 9. What the heck is that? It looks like a lobster claw for a head. Number 10. Very Capricorn looking creature. Yes? Number 11. Look at the little piggy heads coming out of the back of this creature. With the sun, looking very much like the sun in a Rider-Waite-Smith tarot. Okay, and here we have number 12. I think this is the last beast. Oh, sweet. Tail in the bottom, legs in the front. Nope, it's not the last beast. Here we have 13, my favorite number. How do you feel about 13? Are you nervous? Are you unnerved by 13? Do you think it's unlucky? 13 is one of my favorite numbers. It's not my favorite number. I have a few other more favorite numbers. For example, 8 and 12 are my favorite numbers. But I like 13. I like Friday the 13th. Oh, here we have number 14. Oh, look at that birdie. Is it a penguin? Is it a different kind of bird? Who knows? It kind of looks like a glacier environment to me. It looks like a deviant penguin to me. Oh, look at the Night of the Iguana. Lovely. Lovely beasts. Here we have number 16. And here we have number 17. I'm curious how I'm going to use these. Will I use them as a separate oracle thing? Will I shuffle them into the deck and read with them differently? I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure how I will use these. Okay, 19. And 20, which would be Judgment if this were a tarot card, right? And 21 would be the World, but yeah, no, nothing even resembling the World. 21. Now, here we go. For this deck, the last card is Bacchus. We have more cards for these other decks. Here's Bacchus. Look at that Bacchus. Do you know who Bacchus is? Bacchus is the Greek name for Dionysus, the god of wine, the god of fertility, the god of sexuality in some ways, also the god of sometimes music in addition to Apollo. Yeah, we have Bacchus in his cups for sure. Look at the grapes in his hair. So this is the last one for this deck. What's next for these? Okay, now, it looks like we got alternate cards here for the devil. Let's see, okay, here's an alternate devil. Interesting. Face. We have alternate star cards. So if you're interested, okay, interesting. Very interesting. Okay, Shiman, just a moment. Sorry, I suddenly spoke Korean. These are not in order. Here we have the alternate star cards. So if you don't like the astrologer, if you don't like the guy holding the telescope, you can switch out for a more Conver Rider-Waite-Smith looking star. Look at this creature resting on the curve of her spine. Interesting. So we don't have that alternate for the standard coloration. We only have those alternates for the paradoxical cards. And here we have, whoops. Okay, so we don't, okay, now good. Let me see. Remember how I kept saying that my favorite is really the House of God. I wish it were the House of God. Well, here we go. I've got a House of God card. So you don't see the full tower, but you do see two figures leaving the House of God of their own volition. I wonder if this is a kind of Adam and Eve leaving the Garden of Eden kind of thing going on. We got a snake below. We got a male and a female. Huh, that's interesting. I never would have thought that. Very interesting. Okay, so alternate cards. We have the lightning here for these two decks. Not for here. We don't have the lightning for here, but we do have the lightning as an alternate tower card for the blue and the purple. And then we have an alternate judgment card, which is very interesting. I don't know, this kind of reminds me of a lover's card. I know, I'm twisted. I have a very, very twisted imagination. You're very right. But this kind of reminds me of lovers in hell. Or lovers in a house of horrors, or a horror house. Like in the carnivals, there would be those house of horrors. This looks like the lovers went into one of those houses of horrors. Interesting. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is these three decks. Now, frankly, I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to shuffle, and I'm going to pull a card from each of these decks. Just a moment. Friends, I'm sorry, I lied. I just checked the clock, and it's way too late. This video has gone on way too long, so I'm going to stop here. So, what do you think? Do you like one more than the other? Do you like one coloration more than the other? Were you able to decide between the paradoxical versions? Is there one you prefer over the other? I'd love to hear in the comments below. And if you feel called to, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the alarm bell, comment below. I would love to hear from you. If you've stayed this long, you are a strong soul, and I give you great credit for that. And friends, now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.